Hi, everyone, and welcome to chapter 13 of Shemuel Bet. And this is more of the consequences for David after the episode with Bathsheba and Uriah. So, as we said last week, David was punished for his moral failings. And the first punishment was the baby born between him and Bathsheba passed away. And now we're going to see some more consequences with his daughter Tamar, his son Amnon, and his other son Avshalom. Okay, so we're going to jump in. Now, in order to understand this story, one of the questions we have to get to the bottom of is exactly how Amnon, Tamar, and Avshalom are related to each other, okay? Because throughout the text, there is a constant reference of sister, brother, and to what extent are these full siblings, half siblings, or maybe not even related at all. So we begin here, just opening the verses, says, Vahi acharechen, and it was after that, Ul Avshalom ben David, and to Avshalom the son of David, Achot Yafa, he had a beautiful sister, Ushma Tamar, and her name was Tamar. Vaye'ehaveha Amnon ben David, and Amnon the son of David loved her. Now what's interesting about this pasuk is it doesn't mention here that she is the daughter of David. It says that she is the sister of Avshalom. It doesn't there represent the relationship between Amnon and Tamar. In Pasuk Bet it says, Vayetzer la'Amnon l'hitchalot ba'avor Tamar achoto ki vetulahi vayipale be'enei Amnon la'asot la me'uma. And Amnon was distressed to the point of making himself sick. But here it says, on account of Tamar, his sister, Achoto, ki betulahi, for she was a betula, a virgin. Vayipale be'enei Amnon la'asot la me'uma. But it seemed difficult. He couldn't imagine what to do. He couldn't do anything to her. Now, trying to understand these relationships, we're going to have a look at some of the possibilities by going through the commentaries. Okay, but as I said, this reference of his sister, we're going to see time and time again. So how do I look at this? So let's look at Radak. And Radak is based on the Gemara in Masechet Sanhedrin, Kaf Aleph Amud Aleph, 21a. And there it says, Tamar and Avshalom were sister and brother from the same mother. Ma'acha, the daughter of Talmai, the king of Geshur. David had taken Ma'acha during battle through the laws of Eshet Yefat Toa, the beautiful captive. You can have a look at that in Sefer Devarim, chapter 21. David had relations with her before she converted, and that child that she bore was Tamar. Tamar then converted with her mother. So halachically speaking, David is not considered Tamar's father, even though biologically he is her father. Thus Tamar was permitted to Amnon, even though he was David's son. In this scenario, and this is what I've added extra in my notes, she is Avshalom's half-sister and not related to Amnon at all halachically. Me'am Loez, based on Tosafot to that Gemara, gives a different opinion. And that is that Ma'acha was pregnant with Tamar before David took her in battle. She is called the king's daughter only because David raised her. In this scenario, she is also Avshalom's half-sister, but not even biologically related to Amnon. And then finally, we have the Mamloes quoting the Abarbanel, which is that Tamar was born after her mother converted. In this scenario, she is the full sister to Absalom and a half sister to Amnon. Now, understanding these scenarios is key to trying to figure out what is going on here. Are we talking about incest or not? Because on the one level, it seems that this is a half brother and a half sister, and biologically, for sure, it seems that they're a half brother, half sister. But there is a possibility that halachically they're not related. And there's also a possibility that even biologically they are not related, Tamar and Amnon. Okay? And so therefore, although it might be yucky, disgusting in our minds because they've been raised together in the same palace, it could be that biologically they're not related, and certainly halachically they're not related. Davar acher, alternatively, they could be as closely related as half brother and half sister. What they are not is full brother, full sister. This is not two children from the same father and same mother. Okay, so I'm just looking at this because based on how we understand it, how the commentaries understand it, is whether this is something disgusting and it's full incest. No one says. Is it half brother, half sister? Some commentaries say. Is it halachically not related but biologically related? Some say. And are they not even biologically related, not even a half brother, half sister, which is the position of Tosafot, which we saw there. Okay, so again, looking at those shitot, those different positions, we can have a look here. I've got the Gemara in Sanhedrin, Tosafot, and then I've got Abravanel, giving those three different shitot, different positions here on how we're related. And understanding that will represent one of the questions, because one of the things that Tamar says to Amnon right before he violates and forces himself on her is, don't do this terrible thing because my father will not hold it back from you. And that question, my father won't hold it back, what? If they are related, they can't marry each other. If they are biologically related but not halachically related, we still may not say we could do that because it would be morally wrong, even if technically speaking it would be allowed. But if they're not related at all, then she's genuinely giving an out and saying, Amnon, don't violate me, don't force yourself on me, because we can, if that's what you want, you can marry me because we're not related at all, because my mother and father are not your mother and father. Okay, so here, trying to understand that will help us. So with that background, let's go back to the text. Pasuk Gimel. Ul Amnon Rea. Ushmo Yonadav ben Shima, Achi David, v'Yonadav ish hacham me'od. And Amnon had a friend, and this friend was actually his first cousin, Yonadav, the son of Shim'ah, the brother of David. So Yonadav is a nephew of David, and he was a very wise man. Ish Hacham me'od. Now, if you look at any of your translations, they probably won't say wise man. They will say sly or cunning. And that is based on Rashi. Rashi there says a very wise man. Says Rashi, he was wise to do evil. He was sly. He was cunning. But the Malbim says no, Yonadab's intention was not to do evil. His goal was not to try and have his cousin Amnon rape Tamar. He merely offered a way for Amnon to tell David, to let David perceive his affection for Tamar, and to ask her privately to marry him. It was Amnon who was the evil one, who used the opportunity to rape Tamar. Now again, why am I bringing this? Again, I want to tell you the nuance of Mefarshim, of understanding the different possibilities of the text. Just as I could understand that there are nuances based on how Amnon and Tamar are related, to see just how disgusting this is. Is this disgusting because it's incest? Is this disgusting because it's rape? Or is it both? Or is it one over the other? Now, for sure, he raped her. But was it because it was incest that this is so reprehensible? Or is it just because it's rape? I mean, either way, it's reprehensible. But what are we talking about here? Are we talking about rape and incest or just rape? But here, Yonadav, is he a bad friend giving bad counsel? Well, he definitely gave bad counsel, but was his intent, the nephew of David, was his intent that his cousin would rape his other cousin? Or was his intent that Amnon would say, oh, spend some more time with, Yonadav was saying, spend some more time with your cousin, and if you like it, your half sister or your whatever, you're not biological sister, you're not even related sister, perhaps you can marry her. That's what the Malbim is suggesting here. Now, if we go back to what I was saying on Bet, that Amnon was distressed because she was a Betula, because she was a virgin, says Rashi, she was hidden within the house, refusing to go outside. And therefore it was concealed to Amnon what excuse he would be able to seek to have relations with her. The Radak says, because she was a virgin, he desired her even more. So it seems to be, it's very clear that Amnon wanted the forbidden fruit. He wanted something that he could not have. And so therefore, he was trying all that he could possibly do, and he got some bad advice from a bad cousin, a bad friend, or perhaps he misunderstood what Yonadav was saying to him. Again, understanding that nuance between Rashi and Malbim can help us here. Sometimes we're so used to this story and understanding it that we think, wow, what a bad hat that Yonadav was. He was the one, if he hadn't given the advice, none of this would have happened. Or, Yonadav didn't quite understand just how crazed his cousin Amnon was for Tamar. Okay, now, go back to the text. Vayomelo, and he said to him, Madua atakacha, why are you like this? Dal, that you are looking so anemic, so thin, so gaunt. Ben Hamelech, the son of the king, baboker, each and every morning. Halo tagidli, why don't you tell me? Vayomelo Amnon, and Amnon said to him, Et Tamar, achot Avshalom, achi ani ohev. Now look at that language. Tamar, the sister of Avshalom, my brother, I love. Did you hear that again? Say that again. Avshalom, my brother, so we are half brothers. His sister, I love. So again, I'm looking at Pasuk Daled. It would seem that what? Avshalom and Tamar seems from that verse a full brother and sister. But it also sounds like what? Amnon and Tamar might not be related at all, or at best, only half siblings, either halachically or biologically. But there's a possibility from that verse, and that's where we're getting that shita of Tosafot, that perhaps they're not even related at all, not biologically, not halachically. Perhaps it's, again, like a Judas family tree thing, it's Amnon, we know his father is David. Avshalom, we know his father is David. Avshalom's mother is the same mother of Tamar, but it could be that they're not, that they have, that Avshalom's father is David, but Tamar's father is not David, and therefore Tamar is not related at all to Amnon, and therefore, again, disgusting, it's rape, it's horrendous, but it's not incest, if we understand it this way. If we understand it differently, then it's incest to a half-sister, either halachically or biologically, depending on where we want to see it, whether it was before or after conversion. Now, we carry on. Pasuk Hey. Vayomer lo Yehonadav, and Yonadav said to him, Shchav al mishkavcha, lie on your bed, v'hitchal, and feign to be choli, sick. Uba avicha, and when your father comes, lirotecha, to see you, v'amarta elav, and you shall say to him, Tavo na Tamar achoti. Let my sister, again, we're gonna muddy the waters again. Let my sister Tamar please come. V'tavreni lechem, and she will give me bread. V'asta le'enai et habiria, she'll make the food before me, my eyes. Le'man asher ereh, so that I may see. V'achalti miyada, and I shall eat from her hand. Vayishkav Amnon vayitchal. So Amnon did it. He lay down. He pretended to be sick. Vayavo hamelech liroto, and the king came to see him. Remember, this is Amnon, the firstborn, the crown prince. Vayomer Amnon el hamelech, and Amnon said to the king, Tavona Tamar achoti, let, again, muddying the waters, let my sister Tamar come now, utlabev le'enai, and make in front of me shtei levivot, 2 dumplings. Again, that's based on Rashi. Levivot could also be levavot, could be 2 hearts, whatever. Ve'evre miyada, and I shall eat from her hand. Zayin, vayishlach David el Tamar, habaita lemor, lechina beit Amnon achich, vasilo habirya. And David sent to Tamar, saying, go now to your brother Amnon's house and prepare the food for him. So again, more
I have a question, Rabbi Hassan.
Describing this relationship. Yes, Rob.
What is David even doing in this part of the story? I mean, anybody could be the messenger who tells Tamar to go to Amnon's house. Why is he there? I have an idea why he's mentioned there. In verse 5, when Yonadav first mentions the plan to speak to King David in the first place, he knows what's about to happen, because King David is in charge of succession of the throne. He's going to decide who his children marry and who his offspring is going to be, and how the line of David is going to continue, and who's going to marry who, and what's going to happen, who's going to give birth, he's in control of all that. It's one of the rights that it's one of the rights that he has as the head of the family and as the head of the king. And by bringing David into it, what Yonadav is trying to do is to set up his method, his personal opinion of how the line should go. Amnon is certainly next in line, and if he's married to or has a kid with Tamar, then it cements him in. And Yonadav, this word you say maybe it was clever or evil. What he's doing there is he's trying to take control over what is David's right to do, is to decide who's next in line for the throne.
100%. There's definitely jockeying of position here for who's going to take over from David. Now, is David here just being naive? Is he doing something he shouldn't even be involved in? Telling her to go there? Did he know this? Did he know that this was going to be a punishment? I mean, that we're going to play out a little later when he finds out what happens and doesn't punish Amnon. And we're going to hold on to that. So Rob, let's just hold on a little bit and let's see a few more psukim, and then we can come up with some of these questions. All right, so we go here. Vatelech Tamar beit Amnon achiha. So she went to her brother Amnon's house. V'hu shochev, and he was lying down. Vatikach et habatzek, and she took the dough. Vatalash, and she kneaded it. Vatelabev le'einav, and she prepared the dumplings before his eyes. Vatevashel et levavot, and she cooked them. Vatikach et hamaseret. Vatitzok lefanav, and she took the pan and poured them out before him. Vayma'en le'echol, but he refused to eat. Vayomer Amnon, and Amnon said, Hotziu kol ish me'alai, let everyone go out from in front of me, all the servants and whatever. Vaytu kol ish me'alav, and everyone left. Vayomer Amnon el Tamar, and Amnon said to Tamar, Havi'i habiria, bring the food into the chamber. Habiria hached, into the bedroom. Ve'evre miyadech, and I shall eat from your hand. Vatikach Tamar et levavot, and Tamar took the dumplings, asher asata, that she had made, vatave, and she brought them le'amnon, to Amnon achiha, her brother, ha'chadara, into the bedroom. Vatagesh elav, and she brought them to him, le'echol, to eat, vayachazek ba, and he took hold of her, vayomer la, and he said to her, boi, come to me, shichvi imi, lie with me, achoti, my sister, again, muddying the waters even more. Sleep with me, my sister. It's disgusting. It sounds like a Roman or Greek tragedy or Egyptian. It's horrific, incestuous thing going on here. Vatomer lo, and she said to him, Al achi, please no, my brother. Al ta'aneni, do not force me. Ki lo ye'aseh chen beYisrael, because such is not done in Israel. Al ta'aseh et nevala hazot, do not do this disgusting thing. Va'ani ana olich et cherpati, va'ata tiyeh ka'achad hanevalim beYisrael, va'ata daberna el hamelech, Kilo yimna'eni mimeka. And as for you, you shall not be like one of these disgusting people of Israel. And now I beg of you, speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you. So trying to understand the text, what is disgusting to her? The idea of incest, or the idea of rape? Or is it the idea of premarital sex or non-marital sex?
Well, there's another idea too, that it's the idea of insubordination, is that Amnon should know that he should go to King David. He's already told twice. This is the second time that he's being told that he has to speak with the king.
And that what? She's just a what? She's an object? And if David says that she marries him, that's it? Rob?
Well, there's something implied here that if it says, she's saying, please speak to the king. So
let's have a look here. So good.
And then we'll do what the king says.
So let's have a look at the commentary and see. We're going to come back to what you're saying, but let's have a look at the commentary first of all and see how they understand it. Rashi says, David will not withhold from you, For he will not withhold me from you. Why? For I am permissible to you, since my mother conceived me when she was yet a Gentile, a beautiful woman, we've already learned before, who David had taken in battle. Now, whoever has a son or daughter from a Gentile maidservant, he is not considered his son in any respect. So we're saying here, Tamar is halachically speaking, not related, not to her father, biological father David, and not to her biological half-brother Amnon. Says the Abravanel, no, Amnon and Tamar were half-siblings, and as such, this is a forbidden relationship in Jewish law. But Tamar was desperate to save herself, so she would say anything to avoid being raped by him. So what's going on here? Is her motivation to avoid being raped? Is her motivation just to save herself, that she has no problem marrying? She has no problem marrying Amnon. She just doesn't want to sleep with him, because once she sleeps with him, then she can't marry him. There's no issue here of incest. There's no issue here of rape. It's an issue of, I don't want to be taken before I'm married. I'm a princess, and I should be married to a prince. And there should be chuppah and kiddushin. It's not anything else. So this is what's going on. Now, Yud Dalet, it says, V'lo ava lishmoa bekola, vayechezak mimena, vayaneha vayishkav ota. But he would not listen to her. He overpowered her, forced her, and slept with her. And here is the disgusting thing. He raped her. He forced her. It wasn't anything else. It wasn't that that this was incest. It was the fact that he raped her. That is the disgusting thing. Now, immediately after he rapes her, what does the Navi say? Vayisna'eha Amnon, sina gedola me'od. Amnon hated her with a great hatred. For greater was the hatred which he hated her than the love which he had loved her. Ki gedola sin'a asher senea me'ahava asher aheva. Vayomer la Amnon, and Amnon said to her, Kumi lechi, get up and go. Now, before we get into this whole hatred, Vatomer lo, and she said to him, Al odot hara'ah hagedola hazot me'acheret. She said to him, don't do this wrong, which is even greater than the other one, asher asita imi, that you did to me, leshalcheni, by sending me away, velo ava lishmoa la, but he would not listen to her. Vaikra ne'aro, and he called his youth, Mesharato, who would serve him. Vayom, and he said, Shilchuna et zot, send this away from me. Wouldn't even name her by name. Send her out. Un ol haderet achareha, and lock the door after her. Ve'aleha, and upon her, ketonet pasim, was a striped tunic, just like Yosef, by the way. Ki chen tilbashna v'not hamelech, because such was the manner of the king's daughters, habetulot, the virgin daughters, meilim, they would wear robes. Vayetze ota misharato hachutz, and his servant brought her outside. V'na'al haderet achareha, and he locked the door after her. Vatikach Tamar efe al rosha, and Tamar took ashes on her head. Uchtoret pasim asher aleha kar'a, and she tore her beautiful tunic, her striped tunic, which was on her. Vatasem yada al rosha, and she laid her hands on her head. Vatelech haloch v'za'aka, and she went her way, crying aloud as she went. Now we have to understand what exactly is going on. Let's jump to the commentaries. What is hatred going on? Says Masechet Avot, one of the most famous teachings in Pirkei Avot, all love that depends on something, when that thing ceases, the love ceases. And all love that does not depend on anything will never cease. What is an example of love that depends on something? That was the love of Amnon for Tamar, his lust for her. And soon as he got what he wanted, the love was gone. And one is an example of a love that is not dependent on anything. That is the love of David and Jonathan, where the love is not about physical love, it's about physical lust, it's about love of one for another. So Amnon, his love was only lust. And so therefore, once he'd done the act, he not only did he not want her, he hated her. The Ma'am Loez says, such is the way of the Yetzer Hara. After it gets a person to defile himself, it plagues him with guilt. Therefore, Amnon felt guilty over what he had done, and he could not bear to look at Tamar anymore. Rashi says, our sages say, why did he hate her? That she damaged him physically, so he could no longer father children. Now, the Midrash is interesting here. And again, I don't understand the Midrash totally, but somehow in the act of him raping her, she managed to damage him so that he could no longer father children. And so therefore, what is his hatred? His hatred is, wow, you physically damaged me so I cannot have children. It's a very interesting interpretation that Rashi is bringing there. Now, right after that, we have this understanding, when she says, don't do this greater wrong of throwing me out. What is this wrong? Says Rashi, don't do this evil act of sending me away, which is greater in its wickedness than the other act that you had done with me by forcing me. For you are only add an even greater wrong by sending me away. What does that mean? The Malbim speaks it out and spells it out to us. The Torah tells us that a rapist must marry his victim. By sending her away, he was taking no consequences for his crime of passion. You can have a look at that in Sefer Devarim. Now, we can argue that the Torah's understanding of you rape a person, then you must marry them, that's not very good to the victim. But that was the way the Torah understands it. It's even worse to leave her because no one will marry her. The Ma'am Loez says, by sending her out, Amnon was publicly shaming her. Now, what's going on here with this ketonet pasim? Says the Malbim, she was only wearing her ketonet pasim. This was her undergarment. Her robe, worn by daughters of the king, had been taken off by Amnon already. So he's sending her out half naked almost. Why is she putting ashes on her head? Says the Mitzudat David, she did so to show everyone her pain and suffering, that this wasn't a crime of, this wasn't a boy and a girl not showing proper self-control. She'd been raped, she'd been violated. And the Radak adds, as a result of what happened to Tamar, the Beit Din at the time of David established that a single woman should never be left alone. Okay, we added here the laws of Yichud. No man and no woman, not just no prince and no princess. No single man and no single woman should ever be left alone together. Because this is what happens when she was left alone with Amnon. She was violated, she was raped. No one could ever possibly have imagined that this could have happened. And therefore, the Beit Din established the rabbinic rules of yichud, that no man and woman should be left alone, because when a man and a woman are left alone, at best, a boy and a girl might not have self-control, and at worst, the woman could be raped. And so therefore, we try and avoid such scenarios. We go back up, and now we have to deal with the reaction, the consequences to this situation. Vayome eleha Avshalom, achiha, ha'aminon achich, haya imach, va'ata achoti, hacharishi achich, hu al tashiti, et libech ladavar hazeh, va'teshev Tamar, v'shomema bet Avshalom achiha. And Avshalom, her brother, said to her, has Amnon, your brother, been with you? But now, my sister, remain silent, for he is your brother. Do not take this thing to heart. And Tamar stayed in solitude in her brother Avshalom's home. What a strange response from Avshalom, especially what we're going to see later. Is he hiding his feelings even from his own sister? Kaf Aleph. V'hamelech David shama et kol hadabrim haeleh. David heard all of this. Vayichal lo ma'od. He became very angry. Kaf Bet. V'lo diber Avshalom im Amnon lemera v'atov. And Avshalom did not speak good or bad with Amnon. Ki saneh Avshalom et Amnon. Because Avshalom hated Amnon, al davar asher ina et Tamar achato, because he had forced himself upon his sister Tamar. Now, I don't understand these responses. I have Avshalom telling Tamar, don't overreact. I have David being angry, and I have Avshalom so angry with Amnon, he doesn't even speak to him. What are these reactions? So let's try and understand these in the basis of the commentaries. Says the Radak, he called him Aminon. Avshalom calls Amnon Aminon in a disparaging way. Stay silent, he is your brother. Says Ma'am Loez, Avshalom was able to hide his true feelings about the episode, even from his sister. He even encouraged her to remain silent and not bring embarrassment to the family. But Avshalom's hatred of Amnon grew more and more. Every time he saw his sister, he wished to avenge her. David was angry, says the Al-Sheikh. David was angry with himself that he could do nothing. People would say, you can't really blame Amnon. He's behaving like his father. Just as David took Bathsheba, so too Amnon took Tamar. Malbim says, David was angry, but he didn't rebuke Amnon. It was this lack of rebuke that caused even greater hatred of Amnon by Avshalom. Now, Avshalom did not speak with Amnon. Avshalom said nothing to him about the rape of his sister. However, he did speak to him about other matters. If this was not the case, there is no way that Amnon would have gone to the sheep shearing, which we're going to read about. Now, this is the case. Avshalom is the master of hiding his emotions. He pretended to everyone that he was not upset, even to his own sister. But every time that he saw her, his hatred grew and grew and grew. What's the meaning of Aminon, Rabbi says? So Aminon, adding in this extra yud, normally we think about adding letters as it's doing something good, but our tradition is that in this case, adding the extra letter is disparagement. It's saying it's something not good. Now, what does it mean? Does it change the meaning of his name? I don't know. If you have something on there, please share with it, Rob, but I don't know I don't think it changes the meaning. I think it might mean little Amnon, but I don't know what else that can mean. So carrying on, and we're getting now to this, the shearing of the sheep. It says here, Vahi lishnatayim yamim. It was after 2 days. As we've mentioned many times in Tanakh, yamim means years. Okay, it was after 2 years. Vayu gozazim la'Avshalom, and the shearers of Avshalom were in Baal Chatzor, Asher im Ephraim, which is on the Ephraim border. Vayikra Avshalom l'chol b'nei hamelech, and Avshalom called all the princes. Vayavo Avshalom el hamelech, and Avshalom came to the king. Vayomer hinei na gozazim la'abdecha, yelech na hamelech va'avadam im avadecha. You know, Dad, we're having a party. We're shearing the sheep. Will you come down? Vayomer hamelech el Avshalom, al bani Amnon elech kulanu v'lo nichbad alecha vayfrotz bo v'lo aval alechet vayvarechehu. You know what, son? We can't all go down. You have your party, but I can't go down there. It's too much. Okay, you have your party. Vayomer Avshalom, v'lo yelechna itanu Amnon achi, vayomer lo hamelech lama yelech imach. And Avshalom says, well, if you can't come, how about your firstborn, the crown prince? Can he represent you? Vayifrotz bo Avshalom, vayishlach ito et Amnon ve'et kol b'nei hamelech. And so, because Avshalom really pressed, David said, okay, all the princes can go down, including Amnon. So let's jump to the commentary on this, so we can understand this bit better. And it says, they were 2 years later, the Abravanel says, Amnon was on constant guard, waiting for the moment that Avshalom would take revenge. But after 2 years, he lowered his guard, and it was now that Avshalom decided to act. For 2 years, Avshalom kept up, that he was not upset with anyone. Shearing the sheep, Rashi, it was their custom to make a feast when they sheared the sheep. Ma'am Loez, 4 times in scripture there is mention of sheep shearing, and each time there's trouble. When Lavan was shearing his sheep, Rachel stole his idols, and this caused her to be cursed by Jacob, and she died prematurely in childbirth. In the time of Yehudah and Tamar, not Tamar in this story, but Yehudah and Tamar in chapter 36 of Genesis, of Bereshit, that Tamar disguised herself as a prostitute, and Yehudah has relations with her. In Shemuel Aleph, chapter 25, Naval is shearing his flock when he refuses to provide any provisions for David's men, which led to his death. That's 3 not very good events with sheep shearing. And finally, we have here, which is going to lead to this murder of Amnon. Let Amnon come in your place. Says Rashi, if you cannot go, then please let Amnon go with us. Malbim says, speaks it out, since he is the firstborn, the crown prince of Israel. We go back up to the top, and we're going to finish off the chapter. 28. Vaitzav Avshalom et na'arav lemor, re'u na ketov lev Amnon bayayin, ve'amarti alechem haku et Amnon v'hamitem oto, al tirau, haloki anochi tziviti etchem, chizku ve'yu livnei chayil. And Avshalom commanded his youth, saying, please take note, when Amnon's heart is drunk with wine, and when I say to you, strike Amnon, then kill him. And fear not. Have I not commanded you to be courageous and valiant? What's he saying? I'll take full responsibility. Now in halakha, this is not the case. You cannot say, I am a shaliach, and I was just doing what my master wanted. If you kill someone, even on orders, you are halachically culpable. Okay? But he was trying to tell them, this will be my sin, not yours. 29. Vayasu na'arei Avshalom la'Amnon ka'asher tziva Avshalom. And so the youths of Avshalom did to Amnon that which Avshalom commanded them. Vayakumu kol b'nei hamelech, and all of the princes got up. Vayikavu ish al pirdon, each one got on their mule. Vayanusu, and they fled. Vahi hema baderech v'hashmua ba'a el David lemor hikav shalom et kol b'nei hamelech v'lo notar mehem echad. And it came to pass while they were on their way, that the news came to David saying, Avshalom has slain all the king's sons, and none of them is left. Vayakom hamelech vayikra begadav. The king stood up. He tore his garments, and this is halacha, that when you tear kriya on a loved one, you have to stand. Vayishkav artzan, he lay on the ground. V'chol avadav nitzavim, and all the people, servants were standing. Kurei begadim, and they tore their clothes. Vaya'an Yonadav ben Shim'a achi David, and Yonadav, the son of Shim'a, the nephew, said to David, Vayomer, Al Yomar Adoni kol ha'ne'arim b'nei ha'melech hemitu. Don't say that all the princes have been killed. Ki Amnon levado met. It's only Amnon. Ki al pi Avshalom hayta suma miyom anato et Tamar achoto. Because Avshalom has hated Amnon since the day that his sister was violated. Ve'ata al yasem Adoni hamelech el libo davar lemor kol b'nei hamelech metu. Ki im Amnon levado met. And now let not my lord the king put on his heart the thing to say that all the king's sons are dead. Only, well, not only, but it's one son, the crown prince is dead, but not all of your children. Vayivrach Avshalom, and Avshalom escaped. He too fled. Vayisa hana'ar, and the young men that came watch, hatzofet, now they lifted up their eyes. Vayar, and they saw v'hinei amram holchim miderech hacharav mitzad ahar. The behold, a large crowd was coming from the way behind him, by the hillside. Vayomer Yonadav el hamelech, and Yonadav said to the king, Hinei b'nei hamelech ba'u, look, all the princes are coming. Kitva avdecha kenayad, just as your servant said, so it is. Vayika chalotzo ledaber, and it was as he finished speaking, Hinei b'nei hamelech ba'u, the princes came. Vayisu kolam, and they lifted up their voices. Vayivku, and they cried. V'gam hamelech v'chol avadav bachu, and the king and all the servants cried. Bechi gadol ma'od, a great crying, a great mourning, because the crown prince Amnon had been murdered. V'Avshalom barach, and Avshalom escaped. Vayelech al Talmai, he ran to Talmai ben Amihud melech Geshur. Who is he running to? His maternal grandfather. Vayit abel al beno kol hayamim. And David, he mourned his son all the days. V'Avshalom barach, and Avshalom escaped again. Vayelech Geshur, and he went to Geshur. He must have gone to an even more prepared and solidified position to escape his revenge from his father. Vahisham shalosh shanim, he was there for 3 years. Vatzachal David hamelech latzet el Avshalom, and the soul of King David longed to go forth to Avshalom. Ki nicham al Amnon ki met, for he was comforted concerning Amnon, being that he was dead. So after 3 years, finally, David has been comforted on the death of the murder of of Amnon, and he's ready to make peace with Avshalom. Ma'am Loez says all the princes fled. All the sons of the king fled for their lives rather than defend their brother. Even though there were many and Avshalom only one, it was the brothers who fled. So well had Avshalom concealed his hatred of Amnon, they thought that Avshalom planned to kill all of them. Avshalom fled to Talmai. Talmai was his maternal grandfather. Okay, so there we have it, this story. This very, very sad story where it's almost as if David knows that he can't do anything. He can't punish Amnon. And so therefore, he can't even, he suspects Avshalom, and that's why he's hesitant to go down. He's hesitant to leave Amnon there, but he does. And he cries because he thinks all these punishments are befalling him. And then he's relieved and sad for 3 years because Amnon is murdered. But now, what about Avshalom? Can I be reunited with him? But he's seeing all of these punishments. My daughter is raped. That's because of me. Amnon is murdered. That's because of me. My baby was killed because of me. And now, what's going to happen to Avshalom? That we're going to have to wait for next week's chapter.